All right, welcome everyone to this first panel of the day. Yeah, with a question that feels, I think, more urgent than ever. How can businesses actually change for good? Yeah, because let's be honest, we can always talk about sustainability and about purpose. I mean, talking about it is easy, right? But turning those values into real and lasting action inside an organization, I think that's the real challenge. I'm super thrilled to be joined by four people who are not just talking about change, they're making it happen in different corners of the gaming and creative industries, each in their own way. And I want to introduce them to you. I'm starting with Ulrike Küchler. She is CEO and co-founder of Gamebook Studio, where she's bringing simulation games into real-world impact. She worked with industry giants like Hasbro and Skybound, and drawing on 20 plus years of experience across media and entertainment. Please give her a warm welcome applause. Then next to her is sitting Aisuda Köhlemann. She's part of the Berlin-based collective Food for Thought, which creates educational games and cultural projects exploring topics like gender, sexuality, public space, cultural heritage, and the environment. Applause, please. And then to my right, we have Fernanda Pagani. She is co-founder and CEO of Games Ground, Berlin's own games festival with a focus on diversity and community. She's also active at Spielfabrik and Beat 'em Hub, building bridges between games, music, film, and publishing, and making sure inclusion is more than just a buzzword. Welcome. Yeah, and last but not least, Lukas Galinski. He leads sustainability and public benefit project at Instinct 3, where he helps shape influencer marketing that's responsible and also impactful. He also lectures on gaming and ethics and brings a strong background in economics and sports. Hi, Lukas. Yeah, before we dive in, I would like to hand over the microphone for a quick round of introductions. And yeah, I would like to start with Ulrike.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Lucas, for organizing the panel. When preparing this 5-minute short introduction, I was thinking about what the panel title means for me as a founder, as leading Gamebook Studio. We are, as you said, creating simulation games. We are doing this in the entertainment space. We are also doing this in the impact game space. And we are also doing it with a game as a season business model. And this is where, for me, the phrase of business as a season summarized the approach to transformation in business, how we handle it on an everyday basis, but also strategically very well. What do I mean by that? I looked at what areas of transformation I can see in our business on a day-to-day basis, essentially. And for me, this groups into 3 areas. There's probably more, but those 3 I find the most impactful. There's market pressures and governments that facilitate from the outside transformation, like shifting business models. We are seeing that in the games market right now, like for the past couple of years, regulatory demands, environmental accountability. There's technological disruption that's happening all the time. A big conversation we are having right now is surrounding AI and its impact it's having on the quality of our games, on our workflows. And there's inclusion and community, the importance of implementing DEI in teams, in leadership, the importance of implementing player feedback. And all of this, for me, is tied together by the values we build on. And I picked 3 that are especially important to me: accountability, intentionality, and belonging. Just 3 quick examples what I mean by that. Like we're using accountability and implementing it, for instance, in our game as a season approach. We are implementing as a distribution model and as a content delivery model for our players. We want to be accountable for bringing content and bringing new game experiences into the world on a regular basis so that our audience can rely on us on a regular basis. When it comes to technological disruption, we also have like a technological infrastructure that we expand and make available to the creative industries. One example here is our PIC platform project supported by Creative Europe. And for us, in building this infrastructure and making it available, it's always about doing this intentional. So we never use tech for tech's sake, but we look at how can we make meaningful change to our players, to our partners, and last but not least, societal shifts. And here I find belonging, as we also talked in our preparation for the panel, something very important. So creating a sense of belonging on the game level, on the team level, also when forming partnerships, and doing this independent of like where someone is coming from, but integrating it. So yeah, that would be my 5-minute intro, what I thought about when thinking about our panel. I'm very excited about the conversation we are having.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Lucas, you wanted to continue, right?
Right. Thank you very much.
Is it turned on?
Now it's
turned
on. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for starting, Ulrike. This market environment you talked about, this is something we as a creative and influencer agency are working in as well, just on a different level in the value chain. And with the short input, I want to focus on 3 key messages I personally stand for when it comes to our panel title, when it comes to the transformations within companies. Yeah, I want to focus on them, and later on in the discussion further elaborate more details about our business operations. So to start with the first one, I give an internal example because here I brought our mission statement. It's quite big and long, and there's quite some stuff shoved in it. So we shape the next generation of entertainment through authenticity, creativity, a shared vision for a socially responsible future, and by building lasting partnerships between artists, brands, and communities. So it's quite a sentence. And I like everything that's in there. But coming to my key message here, this talk is, of course, very cheap. We all have seen it in companies. It gives each of us guidance, but the hard part is putting this into action. So the first key message here is for everything that you put out there internally or externally, it has to be matched with reasonable, insightful actions. For the second key message, I brought a few examples of memberships and initiatives we're in, and projects and partnerships and cooperations we're having with different organizations within the gaming industry or even outside the gaming industry. And this is something that has been important for me over the past couple 1 to 2 years to build and establish consistency. So you've seen the mission statement. You've seen that we want to have a shared vision for socially responsible future. And to put this into action, it really helped to build a network with different organizations that help us to put our values, our virtues into action. And be co-responsibility for some causes where we act together. And for the third one, I have no example, but it brings the first one together, and it's more of a mindset to play the long game here. So it doesn't help to do a single event and put one message of empowerment out there and then leave it like this. I feel it's really important to make a long plan, especially in our fast-paced industry of marketing and communication, where most or a lot of companies only think a few weeks, a few months ahead. And in this environment, I think it's really important to put a plan together that you can activate and build on through a longer time span. So yeah, that's my input.
Thank you, Lucas. Who's next? I think Fernanda, right?
But I will take it. Is this on? Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much. First of all, for the invitation. And I'm very excited to be here and part of this discussion, which I think is really, really important. And thank you both for the input as well. I'm Fernanda. I'm one of the co-founders of Gamescom Berlin, Berlin-based gaming industry conference and festival, which is now going through its third year, and which is currently funded by Medium Board and local government fundings. The thing is, this is a project that started as passion project, mainly by people from the industry coming from different areas, like coming from indie perspective, more business-oriented perspective, education, and so on. So all of us have different ideas on how we could create a new space, a new event that could also make an impact in the community, let's say. So just to mention that we have a lot of good, we have a mission, we have intentions and values we share, like providing resources, knowledge, open the doors of the industry, not only internally between different layers, but also to outside industries, facilitate more inclusivity, accessibility, and so on. And this is great. We are very proud that this is our mission, but obviously this is not as simple, and it always clashes with also sometimes the reality and challenges that we face. So having just an intention and a mission is not enough. Then what can we do with the limitations that we are faced? And yeah, no? Yes, there you go. Okay, so again, I want to start mentioning a bit of the challenges that I'm sure are not only applying to us, but to many other realities, because I brought a few examples on how we try to take action actively, but I also don't want to make it sound like, look at us, all the good things we do. It's more like trying to come from a point of view of, we are a very young event with very limited resources. We are far away from being sustainable. It takes a while to get to that point, especially for events. Having said that, there is still always something you can do and find within your resources, and then it's important to focus on that, I think. So yeah, definitely we are constantly struggling between keeping our values and integrity and the integrity of our mission, and then also survival. Like, we are at this point where it's hard for us to say no to almost anyone, because otherwise we cannot survive, and that's obviously very frustrating, but there is always, of course, room for playing on there, and still limitations. It's interesting always to see where is the line, where we draw the line, and how we decide it, because also being a collective where there is no hierarchical structure, we decide everything democratically, which we really believe is very important, that everybody participates in the conversation. But sometimes when there is more gray zones on deciding which partners or sponsors to jump in, then discussions probably bring to a complex situation of alignment. Not everybody will agree, potentially. Now, to go on a more practical point of view, so of course, as an event, we have different ways probably that we can try to take an action. And to give visibility, obviously with our stage program, with the speaker program, we try to focus and cover, of course, business topics and so on relevant to the industry, but we really believe in focusing on humanistic topics like ethical design, business and leadership, and diversity, inclusion, of course, also the arts, because to keeping this conversation alive, then it keeps high the relevance of all of these topics and the discussion. We try to keep as many resources open to our public, like with the initiatives like career ground and mentor ground. We try to give free mentoring, free advice on job seeking and so on as much as we can. And one of the things that we try to do the most is also to give agency to marginalized groups or juniors, because we really believe that this is a way to kind of work together toward the future. And there is a lot of juniors that don't know their relevance or value yet, and just putting them as a mentor or as a stage, they realize that yes, they're junior, but they are competent, they have something to share, and that is valuable for the community. So this is one of the things that we try to do the most. And of course, we are limited. We definitely don't have all the answers. We are always a working in progress, and we are always looking to learn. But what we can do then is to try involve and ask advice to communities and organizations that have been walking the way, that are doing this in one way or another, and to check with them, like ask for advice, see what we can do together, give them space. Even if you're not the ones fully driving the situation, asking the help for others is great. Obviously, quickly also on accessibility and ticket prices. Of course, we try to be as accessible as possible, give different options of ticketing for each category, from students to indies to people without a job, to try and keep resources open. And then I think this is a bit of an interesting point, because it touches again on one of the biggest challenges. So the question of limit of resources and money, and how sometimes you have to pick sponsors that maybe don't align fully with you. But then what do you do with this? Like, let's try to make the most out of it, and ask. And also, I feel like obviously there is a lot of trends of big companies and that want to be educators, and also maybe sometimes to polish themselves, maybe, but still, maybe it can be exploited for the good of the community, to bring something positive. So instead of just having a sponsor talk where they're sitting there to present their product, kind of without any other value other than the advertisement itself, ask them to provide knowledge and show the value of the product through actual resources and practical advice for people that people can actually use. Also to challenge them to use the resources for something good for the community. Sometimes we do this to ask sponsors to put money into giving free booths to indies at our event or something like this, or to have a booth that, again, is not just a stand that is like a window shopping stand that is static, but to us to interact and be dynamic with the community. Finally, of course, on the ecological side, try our best to be sustainable, minimizing, fuel travels and disposable materials and so on, and as well with accessibility, even though accessibility is also like a big topic for us, something that we want to always get better with, and the limit of resources is always a big challenge. So, I think that was it for me.
Cool, thank you, Fernanda. Yeah, and last but not least, we also have Aisura. I think you can also connect quite well to working as a collective at Food for Thought, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We are Food for Thought, a Berlin-based nonprofit collective. We design games and workshops, and the goal of these are education, and the end goal of our educational games is to develop empathy. Our themes are social justice, diversity, inclusion, in all aspects, in all domains of life. And our game themes range from sexual identity, gender identity, accessibility, disabilities, neurodivergence, environment. So they pertain to all aspects of diversity. And we target especially youth and parents. With our games, we also develop workshops that are free and open to youth groups and parent groups that demand them. And we are nonprofit, and it's very difficult for us to actually find funding. So we have to apply for a lot of funding, and that is one of our biggest challenges, because we're not exactly turning down people who are coming to give us money, but nobody comes around handing money, right? So you need to apply for a lot of different funding types, and you have to be very selective because our goals are not compatible with the goals of the funders, and that happens a lot when you're a value-driven organization. And when we're designing games, when we're designing our workshops, sometimes we get demands from funders or from the companies that are disseminating them to tone it down. To not touch upon certain topics, to not be too political, or to not be too sexual. When you're educational, that could be considered too sexual when you don't consider it as sexuality, but just as education, for instance. And with the changing political environment, that's getting worse. So we did get attacked, for example, in Turkey by conservative media. We did get demands for changing our content from Google, Apple, and that does happen, but we are fighting that because our first priority is to keep the integrity, the end goal of our organization. And yes, we face the funding challenge, which is getting more difficult because of the changing political environment, as I said. The other thing is that if we're going to be value-driven, if our end goal is to develop this empathy and diversity and inclusion, we have to live those values. And what we find is that it's very easy to talk about them, but it's not as easy to apply them in our daily practice. We are a collective and we are horizontally organized, so we don't have a hierarchical structure. And we call this messy care. And we consist of a lot of different groups of people, queer people, migrant people, and neurodivergent people. So we bring in different perspectives, very strong personalities, and we have to work together all the time. And we find ways of doing that, but it has its challenges. It is not the easiest, most straightforward thing, given that we have been socialized into working in hierarchical environments all of our lives in every institution, including at home. So we're trying to overcome that challenge constantly. And then there's the dissemination. Thanks to funding, we're able to disseminate our both workshop and games as much as possible. We make them open source and available to the public. So these are the basics of our organization and how we operate. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Aysura. Yeah, thank you all for your introduction. I also find it easy to talk about change, but then really get into action, right? That's the real challenge here. And I also want to know what your personal baseline is. So I have a question for each and every one of you. So maybe start with Ulrike. Can you tell us what organizational change means to you personally? What's your personal take on that when you think of that? Because I think it's a very subjective thing, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Sure. For me, I think organizational change has like several layers, right? There is the layer what happens within the organization, how change is happening there, being able to recognize change and transformation in the first place. There is a lot of observation involved before things become actionable, and then taking the right consequences from it, making the right decisions so that the organization, that the business, that it can grow and cater to its mission, to its vision in the right way. And then there is the impact and the organizational transformation I can do as an organization outside in the world, the values that I can implement, the change that I can make as an organization. For instance, when working on impact games and using games for creating change, for educating, for immersing people in a world and experience something from first-person perspective that they otherwise in other media probably could not. So I think, like, from a personal angle, these two perspectives for me would be very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Aysura, how about you? How would you define organizational change for you?
So I think we're in a perpetual state of change in our organization because we're trying something that nobody's very used to. So we're always adjusting and figuring out the problems and trying to resolve them as we go. This is our process. It requires a lot of trust. We're a small team, so that's easier to build in a small team, to be honest. And we've become friends. We've learned, everything about each other. But the big challenge is communicating when there are a lot of strong personalities in the room and a lot of very different, sometimes opposing views on what direction to take. And that means we have to negotiate all the time about how we want to proceed. And when you don't have this hierarchical structure, someone telling you this is what we're going to do, I'm making the decision, that constant negotiation can be very tiring. But at the same time, I would not change that for what I'm normally used to, because it's the end is very fulfilling because nobody feels like they're excluded from the decision. It takes more time and there is conflict. And I think organizational change should involve a lot of training and maybe continuous training on different types of communication, especially nonviolent communication, when everybody's committed to communicating their needs, their true demands, and listening to it with fully committing to understanding the needs of the people you're working with. So this is how I would define change. Not like, here's what we're going to do now, but slowly adjusting, and also slowly adjusting depending on the new team members, because this is a personality-driven model, I would say. Everyone brings in a different personality, and some people are very forceful. I'm like that. Some people are very, they go along with everything, and you feel like, oh, they agree with us, but they're not really agreeing. They just don't want to rock the boat. And the big mistake is letting those people stay silent without communicating their needs. So things like that you don't understand if you don't actually have training on that, I believe.
Oh wow, that sounds super interesting. I'd love to dive also deeper into that in our conversation. But how about you, Fernanda? What does organizational change mean to you personally?
I guess because I'm quite interested in how the definition of transformational change somehow implies and requires a lot of constant self-checks, reality checks, and as also Isuda mentioned, like always adapting to how things are changing within the team and outside. And I think that's extremely fascinating and always kind of a humbling lesson in the way that you can move towards different ways to have a positive impact. And I think it's personally also it feels very empowering to be part of maybe an organization that has this type of intention to try and change things in a way that it's really driving to push and more, that it's not just about work, it's about something more. And I think that a lot of us take a lot of the energy and motivation to keep pushing also when things get a bit complicated through that. So I think it's also a very good energy force.
Yeah, check in, adjust, right? Would you agree, Lucas? Do you want to add something? What's your personal take on that?
Yeah, I do agree to a lot of that has been said already. And for me, organizational change is also kind of a mindset. A mindset, you have to realize that transformation and change is a constant. So it's not like we start a process and it ends. You always have to reevaluate that and get this into the mind of everyone you're working with is also something I try to do, especially when I talk about sustainability internally. For example, right now, over the course of several weeks, I'm doing some internal workshops, also with mixed teams. It's not just one department, the people coming together from different departments and providing that space to discuss the baseline on certain topics, but also raising issues and having those discussed over the course of a time is really important. And in the moment we're doing this with one group, the shared vision comes to life that we were talking about for a responsible future in our mission statement. But as soon as we leave the room, it kind of is old already, and the people have to work on that, bringing that into their everyday operations. And for example, and then the next group 2 months later is maybe at a new level, brings in new ideas. So to get this mindset of constant change, I think is really important to also not get frustrated with one single process not working as intended. So yeah, keeping this in mind, I think, is really important for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so the mindset and what I hear is constant communication on every side, check in, adjust. Yeah, I think that's what we can agree all on, right? Ulrike, what triggered your decision to build Gamebook as a values-driven company, and how did you implement that internally?
Great question. I think it has a personal reason, and it also has a industry observation reason. As you said,
Yeah.
so I worked in different creative industries in the past. I started out in broadcasting. I worked in the book industry, in film, and now for many, many years in games. And I've seen that the teams where I felt I could achieve, or we as a team could achieve the most, were teams that had a very solid foundation on values that I shared, and were more sustainable on the long term than teams where this was missing. So that's my personal reason. And then there's also let's say a product vision related reason to that, because also all the different entertainment and creative products I've seen come to life, those that were the most memorable with the audience and their target audience were those that had an underlying set of values that the players they can identify with, that a community that they feel part of, that already was also touched on. So for me, those two levels have been very important in trying to integrate that and weave that into our DNA on a daily basis. And maybe picking up one thought from before is also change is something that we have to actively embrace, and we try to do that also on the company level, myself included, on a daily basis, because change is something we as humans are afraid of, right? Change is threatening to what is stable, and we crave stability. So empowering us as a team with a tool set, like an actionable tool set, how we deal with change, inside the organization, but also outside, is one of the most crucial tasks that I see and that we also review on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it's super interesting that you say that. Yeah, change is something that many people are afraid of, but we should embrace them. But how can we get people on board who are afraid, who are skeptical? Lucas?
I think it's really important to listen to them and involve them into discussion. As Aisura said, some people are silently sitting in a room or in a meeting, and I think you have to hear everyone and involve everyone. And if they're silent, you maybe have to ask them why they don't want to give their opinion and start with that. So I think this is something sometimes also very telling to which matter they speak up, and to which some people choose to stay silent and hear their reasoning for it, and then understand one person or the whole department better in some issues.
I see you nodding, Fernanda. So I think you agree with that. So just listen to them, get them on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, including everybody's perspective is necessary. Otherwise, it becomes a kind of just a pool of people just agreeing with each other, and there is no way to find solution moving forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think sometimes also the way to convince people is to become quite practical with coming, yes, from theory, but then become actionable and logical with trying explaining why this is important, why this matters, what can it bring, and even to debate on this is very important on a trying to not be too emotional, even though if it's not emotional topics, but keeping as much as possible realistic and open to debate this and convince with facts and hopefully make a difference with it.
Yeah. Aisura, you also said in your intro that it's sometimes like really hard to make decisions in a collective. Can you go deeper into that? What do you do as a collective when things get uncomfortable?
We negotiate, but we need a mediator sometimes when it gets very difficult, because when there's a deep divide among people, we need a neutral mediator. And it really that they need to be neutral because there were situations when we're like, you're siding with that group or this group, and it gets uncomfortable. We need someone good at mediating, which is a different thing than managing or participating. You really need to find that person who's good at mediating and who can maintain a neutral position. And then I think the best thing is that we're there as a team because we trust that we are going to do a good job. Like, that's why we started this in the first place. And we should trust each other's intentions, not assume bad intentions. When it gets most difficult, I find, is that when you're kind of in the middle of the project, when you hit a wall. Like, in the beginning, everybody's excited. In the end, when you're getting to the results, it's great. Everybody's congratulating each other. But those challenges in the middle, then when everybody has different solutions when you hit the wall, it becomes difficult. And change is good, but it's not always good. So I actually think, again, I'm a person who's always like, let's change this, let's change that. But I appreciate that people are more conservative, because sometimes people like me jump the gun, and the people who are like, why? Who keep questioning, remind me, maybe it's not necessary right now. Maybe we don't need to change this so much. Maybe we need to be more conservative about this. So actually having different personalities, different perspectives, keeps you in check. Having to explain why you want to do something reminds you that, is it necessary really? How much of it is necessary? Sometimes you end up questioning your own goals. But except for the mediation and checking yourself, I think this most important thing is constant communication, because sometimes everybody gets to their corner in our collective. Like, we keep writing, the other keep designing the characters, visuals, and then we spend weeks not talking. And then when we get together, we realize we've done different things and they're not compatible. And then we need to go back and figure that out. So I would recommend we figure that out as we went. So I don't think we'll be doing that in the future. We learn from our mistakes, but you need to be in constant communication because I didn't know that game design requires so much, like every single thing. And because I'm an academic by profession, we work alone. And I didn't realize that, oh my God, even the length of someone's shorts might matter in this game design. I didn't think about that. So you need to be in constant communication. When you hit a wall, bring in a mediator. And question yourself and explain yourself, and don't assume bad intentions. Remind yourself that you trust these people fundamentally. And I think even if you work online a lot, like online meetings, getting together once in a while and socializing is so helpful. Nothing can be a replacement for in-person socialization.
Fernanda, you also work as a collective. Do you also see your team in what Aisura is saying, or how do you manage in uncomfortable situations?
I can definitely relate to a lot of what she just shared, especially because, we are us as we are a part. First of all, many collectives coming together, doing a project on top of our jobs. So even with less time to deal with a lot of these conversations that oftentimes go kind of on the side. And obviously we do align on certain main big goals. But then when it comes to more micro things or more gray zones in a way about certain choices, like then sometimes the discussion becomes, obviously, not everyone's mindset will be respected. It's a democratic approach as well, which is the good and bad of it. And I think sometimes it's also the idea is that the way we had to learn also the hard way to slowly create more communication tools, more teams that talk more often as much as possible when it comes to decision making, to look at situations as a single rather than too much on the big systems, because again, this becomes too abstract. And I feel like, especially on the integrity choices, sometimes you end up having discussions about, for instance, hypocrisy of, why this partner and not this partner, they're basically the same, which is obviously something that should be debated. But if you always end up in the same loop, then in a way you're open up to everything or to nothing. So it's a bit tricky. So it's always interesting to talk about it, but important thing to look together at the situation, at the single situation as it is, and not go to beyond to mega systems, let's say, in a way.
Yeah. Ulrike, many companies want to be sustainable, but they don't know where to start. What's one concrete first step you would recommend? Where to start when you want to make change?
I would look at my company today and ask myself, like, what difference do I want to make today that pays into like my company vision, my mission, what I want to achieve. And then like plan small tangible steps. I think the challenge is always translating. We are seeing transformation and change as something that is very, very big and sometimes very abstract. And we need to make it concrete. We need to make it tangible. So what's one thing I can do today that is bringing about that change? That would be what I would be thinking about.
Small little steps. Would you agree to that, Lucas?
I do agree, yes. But on the opposite, what I also did, try to identify the big topics that have a big impact that could be, that maybe can be changed easily. And for example, one, easy thing or one obvious thing when it came to the ecological dimension was asking internally what's the energy we're getting supplied, and it was we're renting office space, and we learned it was a energy mix, and talked to our landlord and simply managed to change that we get renewable energy. So that was the process of looking at what are the topics in the ecological but also social and governance dimension that are kind of obvious, and we can already get on and identify where we have big impacts and where we can make changes easily also. Yeah.
You often navigate between purpose and also business goals. So that tension, how do you handle that in practice?
Purpose and business goals vary in between different departments and different roles. So another example that worked really well was providing everyone who's working with clients, who's working on some inquiries for new campaigns, supply them with kind of a, let's say a value-based checklist with basically questions they can ask themselves and together with their content creators about certain clients and companies. And for example, are they controversial in some way? What's the public critic about companies? What do they do? Are they reporting on sustainability, especially if they're big companies? And really gather all information that is available to then empower them to make thoughtful decisions especially in doing promotional campaigns or also declining them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also, like you just said, give the ball right to the business partners. Give them something to think about it. That's what you also mentioned, right? You have the business goals, you need the funding, you need the sponsorship, but you have your purpose. How do you juggle that? How do you do that in the collective?
I guess it's again trying to make the most of
Yeah.
where you're at, and then think of each potential partner or sponsor, like what they can bring to the table, and just directly challenge them in ways that maybe not always they get to be challenged, because sometimes when something is a content is sponsored, it's kind of a given that they have total freedom to do however they want, but it's simply like our small way to keep some control and in check with our value of or motivation to share the knowledge in the first place. But yeah, it's always tricky to find new small ways to do it. But
Yeah.
at least I think we found a few already, and most of the times I have to say. Sponsors are also quite open to it, because they can find even themselves a value to not just be too static, because they find a purpose, and again they can tell themselves they're educator, good, but at the same time it's good for them to show that they are proactive in some sort of way, and so good for both in a way.
Aysura, you also mentioned that when you are discussing, especially in a collective, there are different kinds of persons, right? In the group, there are people who are louder, like you, and then there are people who have, smaller voices. How can you be sensitive to also read what these people have to say?
You need to ask.
Yeah.
And you need to take turns and okay, now you tell me exactly what you think on this. I'm not saying we're always successful in this, but that's the only way to do it. You need to explicitly ask people if they're okay with that, if they have a different idea. Because some people are very silent, they will not speak, and they will resent. Because whenever people don't speak up, they resent silently. So that's one thing you really need to avoid in any organization, whether you're a collective or not. I think our opportunity is to give people that voice. Again, a mediator, if the people are not comfortable talking to each other, if someone doesn't feel comfortable, a mediator allows people to do that. And it doesn't have to be the same person all the time, but we have kind of decided on one person for one project, and you will take that job and you will carry on that role. This is how we do it. Yeah.
Our panel is slowly coming to an end. Time is really running, and I still want to make some time for you to ask some questions. But before we do that, I have one last question for each and every one of you. So starting again by... So if someone in the audience wants to make a start to make a real change in their organization tomorrow, what's one thing they could do tomorrow morning or Monday morning?
We talked about a lot about embracing transformation and change, but I would add to that, say no. The ability to say no to things that do not fit into what you want to achieve, into your values, the products you're working on, and having a clear stance there. Sometimes that's creating more transformation and more impact than saying yes to everything.
Thank you. Aysura, one thing that you could do tomorrow morning if you want to start to do change?
I generally think that community, because you cannot make change alone. And that's one of the biggest problems with the grind culture. We're always taught to be like, you do it. But you can be successful. You can make a lot of money if you focus on yourself. But if you want to bring change to society anyway, you need to build community. And that's very different from networking. Again, networking is good for personal success, but community is necessary for change. Like-minded people who will spend time and who will not always try to seek credit. That's very important. You need to be working with people who are not always trying to take credit for everything, because sometimes, a lot of times, the credit is collective, and if people are competing for that, it can become very problematic. So I would say community, build a community with like-minded people with the same goal in your organization, and with similar organizations too, a community of organizations, and that's how you can bring change, I think.
Okay, say no. Community. Fernanda.
Touching on that again as well, definitely ask for help and partner with the community that is thinking likewise. If you don't know where to start, look at what they're doing. Start small, but start somewhere for sure. And I think maybe don't, especially if you're very passionate about the change that you want to bring, it can be easily very frustrating when you feel like you cannot do all that you want to do immediately. Like you really want to help on every direction, and it's very frustrating on a personal level. But this should never stop you, because it's also about accepting your limitation together with your responsibility with that, and that it's always going to be a long process, and it's better that it's a slow process over the year rather than starting nowhere at all. And I guess lastly, be ready to be accountable for things as well. Be open, and sometimes making mistakes doesn't mean to be done, but to react to it on a positive way.
Yeah, and some patience also, right? Lucas, what can I do tomorrow?
I agree to everything that has been said to this answer to this question already. Maybe add just one more thing, especially in commercial organizations. It's important to create the safe space to have the discussion what matters individually or for the collective, the whole staff, for one department or the whole company. And this is something that has to also be done continuously and started again and again, because of course this is oftentimes contrary to business interests. So you have to especially take care of that with very good intention and do this very thoughtful.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I want to put the spotlight on you guys, to the audience. Do you have any question for our panelists? Is there anything you'd like to know? Just raise your hand. I hope we have somebody with a microphone. Oh, yeah, we have. Ah. All right. Great, here in front. Hi. Oh, 1 second. He's running, he's turning it on. And
he's running.
Yes, pushing the button.
Multiple questions, so I'll just start. Question to Aisuda. Ballpark numbers for the budget of Sibel's journey. Can you comment on that, like what the rough budget is? And the second question would be, is the topic actually helping you to get visibility, or is it just as hard as for anybody else?
God, I don't remember the budget. It's not very expensive. We work with extremely small.
That's relative, huh?
Sorry?
Not very expensive is a relative term, I guess, depending.
I don't want to say something and then be wrong. I just, because the person who's responsible for the budget said it not, and I need to ask her.
No worries.
But it's not like hundreds of thousands of euros. That's what I mean. It's not. We worked. We all, because it was very value driven, for us it was very important, and a lot of us have other jobs that supplement our income. So that actually this is the supplement. So we worked with very little money, and that's how we could save money. Visibility. So here's the thing. We got so many awards for Sibel, and now we have Leila's play, which is going to come out hopefully soon. We need to raise a little bit of more money because we're on the last stage, but we ran out of funds. But here's the thing is, people keep giving awards for diversity, but they don't give money for diversity. So we turn to people that we trusted, a large community, especially the LGBTQ community, and we raised funds by crowdsourcing. And I think we raised like 20,000 euros, which was very necessary for Sibel's journey to finish. And then we were able to finish that and disseminate it. and then we worked with civil society organizations who didn't give us money, but they made their resources available. They helped us disseminate. They helped us connect to a lot of the other different organizations. So their contributions were in kind. There was a lot of visibility, and we recently realized that that visibility is harming us right now, which is what it is. You have to do what you need to do. But this gender ideology thing is becoming huge everywhere. So when we go to a new country, and that country is the politicians are starting the gender ideology, you know, they're trying to poison our youth, kind of fascist rhetoric. They start attacking you because it's a very easy target, because you're working on sexuality, gender, LGBTQ issues, and you're working with youth and parents. So visibility has become a double-edged sword for us. It's good right now in Germany. But it's not good in many other countries. So this is our issue, but I wish we could have also funding on top of visibility for, you know, as much funding as recognition that comes with it. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know
Thank
if
you.
I can answer.
Yeah, you do.
I want to underline one thing Aisuda said. They don't give money for diversity. It's the same when it comes to the gaming industry in a lot of cases. I rarely have seen over the past 5 years, for example, KPIs that focus on a diverse cast, or when it comes to content creators. This is something I really have to point out, and it really makes me angry when I talk about it, because it would be so easy, especially for big corporations, to put some money on this topic in their promotional efforts as well. That's it.
Just one note, because you mentioned Layla's Play, just one note for you guys. You can also play it in our game area. It's the demo, right? Yeah. Yeah. Do we have more questions for the panelists? If not, oh, yeah, well, you're on fire. All right, shoot it. Oh, it's coming back to you. It's coming back to you.
Hi, me again. On basically working as a collective and with a flat hierarchy, I would be interested, did you, apart from your company values, actually lock down your team values as well? Like actually write them down in a kind of team DNA fashion? And follow-up question on that, did you ever experiment with personality profiles when actually talking about how do I give voices to like less loud, for lack of a better word, people? Did you try to do that?
Well, definitely. Let's say we have in the beginning, when kind of working together as a comp, kind of brainstorm of what we wanted to achieve, and therefore we did write down certain values and certain goals and certain ideas that we were all sharing. But again, this, I think, first of all, we probably yearly we do meet up all together and discuss certain things and certain themes. I think we should probably have also a more frequent or more defining process to also check on things. At the same time, I'm not sure that we can always figure out that we do align on every single step, especially when you go a bit more below in the, let's say, sub-parts of these big ideas. So I do believe that it's probably necessary to find better ways, but we definitely have clashes. And I think it's because of also the amount of time that we have to dedicate. None of us is full-time, and at different times. Some working freelancing, some work part-time, some work full-time. And this is definitely something that doesn't allow as much space as needed sometimes to take the time to discuss these things again and see if we're still on the same page. Sometimes comes out that we are not on the same page and we need to deal with it in a certain way or another. But don't think it doesn't really give any solution to this, but just a reflection, I guess, on how it's been for us for now.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. A huge thank you for taking time, for participating in this panel. This is your applause. Great. Thank you guys.